It takes someone truly mad to think they can unlock the madness, but maybe we can. Welcome back. We had a tough run in the first round. Didn't lose a ton, won a few bets, didn't get completely wiped out. But our total has gone down. This is what happens when there's a million games to choose from. It's harder to hone in on the right ones. It's not like we didn't have good picks, but the dozen didn't go our way. We came back in the round of 32. If you're following at Mike Mush Sports, when we're not live here, you can still get picks on there. We're adding them. Some of them count towards our totals. If I didn't give you enough time in between, then I don't count them. But there's rock solid picks there. We're doing NBA stuff too, by the way. Been red hot there. But this is a college show. Sweet 16 is upon us. Fewer games. We can really hone in. I've got a few picks that I really, really love. It's 4 teams. It's 3 bets. That's it. We don't have to get super complicated. We're diving right into it, and I'll tell you which ones they are. First up, Gonzaga Bulldogs. I feel like a lot of people are scared off from the Memphis game. Meanwhile, that made me super confident in them. Memphis is really good. Okay, did people not know how talented Memphis was? They had a really rocky start to the season, don't get me wrong. It wasn't looking very good. And then when that game, I mean, that was maybe the game of the tournament so far. Probably was. One of the best ones anyway. That UNC Baylor game was ridiculous. By the way, if you were riding with us on the UNC Moneyline pick, great. I'm glad. I will admit, you got to admit when you're wrong or else people won't believe you when you're right. I cashed out going into overtime. I took actually a small loss on that because going into overtime, it looked like UNC just had no gas, and I don't know how they pulled off that game. I hope you guys won, but, you know, sometimes it doesn't go our way. And at Mike Mush Sports, you can get up-to-the-moment stuff if you want it. But in any case, this game was a beautiful showing from Gonzaga of what they can do in the second half. Score 51 points in the half, win it by 14, win the game by 4. And in a game where Chet Holmgren, I mean, he still had 9 and 9, by the way. It's not like he was useless. He had 4 blocks, but he didn't impose his will completely because Memphis has size and strength and athleticism that a lot of other teams really don't have. Are they as coordinated? Do they turn the ball over a lot? Yeah, whatever. But still, they were able to neutralize some of Gonzaga's size, which their size and skill combined is what makes them such an impossibility to deal with. So when they won this game and Timmy came out in the second half and absolutely shredded them, it looked like a man possessed. And Holmgren didn't even have it all. And the guards played really well and they were hitting a bunch of threes. When they win this game, I go, well, it's a matter of time before Holmgren and Timmy both get it going in the same game. You look back to the Georgia State game and they both crushed. 32 and 13 for Timmy, 19 and 17 with 5 assists and 7 blocks for Holmgren. And this is a team that didn't have the size to deal with him. Right? And in that kind of game, you can call him scrawny if you want. We can judge him as an NBA prospect all we want, and he's not number 1 on my board because I do have some concerns about his body filling out. But that's not relevant to right now. Don't get lost in trying to project NBA talent. The same way people were picking Auburn because Jabari Smith could throw down hammers. It's like, yeah, but the team doesn't have guards, and because of that, they're not going to win. We'll get back to that later. Same thing here. Holmgren is still a monster. He ruins the game for teams that can't deal with his size. And so when we look back, this Arkansas team, I mean, first of all, you look at their roster, right? And of the people that play a lot of minutes, the only big man is Jalen Williams, and he's 6'10", 240. Now that's big, but their second biggest plays 16 minutes a game, and I think he's like 6'6". Yeah, he's 6'6". And then another one is like 6'7", Brooklyn kid, I think. Yep. So they're gonna have a hard enough time dealing with just Timmy on the inside. And I looked back to see when they played Kentucky, like, what does a really strong big do? Now, Sheboy is a monster on Kentucky. I'll grant you that. And I'm not saying that Holmgren has the size that, or strength really. He does have the size. He doesn't have the strength that Sheboy has. But when you're talking about a really skilled big, I mean, Sheboy went for 30 and 18 against this Arkansas team. Now, Kentucky lost the game. That's a different problem. But I'm really just trying to isolate, are Timmy and Holmgren going to be able to get it going against this kind of team? And if they do, are they going to be able to be beaten? I don't think so. And so after going back through this game, this is the one that stood out, but there were a couple more of Arkansas just giving up a lot of size and a lot of rebounds and paint touches to these bigs throughout the year. I just don't feel good about them even competing at all with Gonzaga. And I'm not scared off by a close game with Memphis, because if you've been paying attention during the tournament and at the end of the year, Memphis is probably a top 10 team in the country right now, even though they lost. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know, but it feels that way to me, at least talent-wise. So pulling out this win is a benefit. I don't feel bad that they didn't win that game by 20. And so Gonzaga Moneyline is the first half of a 2-team parlay in the first pick that we're going to give you. So there's one down. The other one, we're keeping it real simple here, folks. Kansas Jayhawks money line. The Kansas Jayhawks money line and the Gonzaga money line parlayed together gets you minus 160. I'm putting 2 units on that. I feel really good about it. And the reason being, first of all, I faded Providence in the first round just like everybody else did, right? So these are the Texas games. Let's look at the Providence game. A lot of people had South Dakota State. Why? Because they can shoot the basketball at a really, really high rate. And Providence doesn't score a whole lot. They're actually the luckiest team in the country, according to Ken Palm. Right here, number 1 in luck. And it's hard to make that up. I mean, you look at the other really luckiest teams, and North Carolina is down here 33rd. Miami's 42nd. But most of these good teams are not high in the luck category. Does that mean anything? Not necessarily, but it does mean that there's a regression to the mean coming. Pun totally intended. And I don't feel good about that when it comes to Providence. I also don't feel good about scoring at all when it comes to Providence. But in any case, you look back at this South Dakota State game, they go 7 for 23 from 3. They were a team that shot much closer to 40% than 30% on the year. They only scored 57 points, and Providence only scored 66. They shot under 40% from the field, didn't shoot great from 3, turned it over 10 times, 13 assists to 12. They out-rebounded the Jackrabbits, but they were bigger going into it. Not that they're the biggest team in the world, but this game didn't inspire a ton of confidence. They squeaked by against a team that usually shoots the lights out and couldn't do it that game. You look at the Richmond game. Now, they win this by a lot, but Richmond went 1 for 22 from 3, and this plays into the luck factor, right? How many of these teams are going to go 1 for 22 from 3 in this kind of game? If they go, I don't know, 8 for 22, right? That's 21 more points that they score there. That brings it to 72-79, not to mention all of the times that Providence probably ran off of long misses and scored easy buckets and shot 52% from the field, which is not going to happen because, again, you look back at the South Dakota State team, who isn't a juggernaut defensively, and they were only able to score 66. So this 79 feels like a bit of an anomaly for me. I don't think they're going to score 40 in back-to-back halves. And they were facing a team that they had more talent than and just could not shoot the basketball. Now they're going to face a Kansas team that has way more talent than Providence does, is better coached, although I like Ed Cooley, but he's been making a lot out of not a lot. There's not an All-American on this team. There's not a ton of talent. They're going to be wiped out by Kansas's talent. Kansas can shoot better than they can. Let's look at the offensive numbers. Providence, 32nd adjusted offense, 58th on defense. Kansas, 6th offense, 26th on defense. These offensive numbers, I just don't understand how Providence is going to be able to keep up and or slow them down. And you look back at this Kansas-Creighton game, they didn't even shoot great from 3 here. They shot average for what they do. They get to the line a lot. They put a lot of pressure on you. And maybe most importantly, they had 47 rebounds in this game. They scored 79 points on 40% shooting. They do all the little things they really need to do, and I just don't see that from Providence. So I don't see Kansas being like a real letdown team. They seem too good for that. Abaji is really talented. They have more than enough guards coming at you. They don't have a ton of depth. They have guys that can see the floor, but it's mostly a 6-man rotation, which is fine. I'm not going to be scared of Providence there. And you saw what happened with Kansas when they do hit shots, right? Because the rebounding is still absolutely there. This is size and strength difference to me, too. Like, not just the luck of Providence squeaking by some teams that they could have probably lost to if the game went a little bit differently. But these rebound numbers are absurd for Kansas. So I just anticipate this being bully ball. And usually when it's one team is so much bigger and stronger than the other one, which I think will come to play here. And the size numbers, the height doesn't necessarily bear it out. But when you watch these two teams play, it's a strength difference. When the team with the strength difference can also shoot better, and I'm looking for a regression to the mean from the other side, I don't even know if this one's going to be close. However, I'm not taking the 7.5 point spread because, frankly, these games are just too tight for me to lay big numbers at this point. But I do think Kansas pulls it out. I think they have the better coaching. I think they have a more well-rounded team. They have more talent. They can go to individuals more often. And I think it's more likely that Kansas will have a player get hot than Providence will. I just haven't seen that from Providence, a one-man takeover kind of thing. They don't really do it. And if you're relying on teamwork against a team with better teamwork and size, there's just too many things that stack up for Kansas. So that's the first pick. Gonzaga money line parlayed with Kansas money line minus 160. I can't believe there are people going against Gonzaga, but I hear it. I hear a lot of people, since there's so many podcasts and YouTube videos, and I'm guilty of it too, right? Everyone who's trying to make picks is just trying to go against the public. And what I've started to realize is if everyone is following these picks, maybe it's a small segment in reality of the overall betting market, but at some point it kind of flips around, right? If you're just going against the grain to go against the grain, but there's a lot of people following you and doing that, maybe you have to go back to the public to make it work. And I don't know if that's the case in either of these games, but I do think there's an argument to be made in one of them coming up that we'll talk about. So that's the first one, minus 160. The odds are not great, I'll admit that. But just getting it on the money line and not having to lay points with two of the best teams in the country against two teams that I think could have easily lost in the first round. I picked both of them to lose in the first round. And I'm big on adjusting as you go and seeing what you've seen, but I haven't been impressed by Arkansas or Providence. And so I have no reason to change how I felt about them all year, which was down, and I'm going to fade them at this point. Next one, Houston Cougars versus Arizona Wildcats. I mean, Battle of the Cats. This game should be really fun. The thing I'm not understanding is, why am I allowed to get Arizona at minus 130? There's a lot of underlying numbers that point to Houston. I get that. Offense, defense, they're Ken Pom numbers. They're right next to one another. Ken Pom has loved Houston all year long, despite the injuries to their team. And I think it's really hard to just throw Houston aside, right? No one is doing that. In fact, most people saw that TCU-Arizona game, got really worried that Arizona could not box out and defend. I was screaming at the television the whole time. Had Arizona money line. It hit. That was part of the good round of 32 for us. I just think without Houston's depth, which they are missing some of, and it hasn't bitten them yet, and they've gotten great coaching all throughout the year. Final Four team last year. They have all the pedigree. I get all of it. But at some point, that lack of depth needs to bite you in the ass. And I feel like there's something to look at between these box scores here that show me that while Houston had a really nice pair of wins where they just took care of business and it never really felt like a huge struggle, that Arizona has actually yet to show their best basketball. I think they might have needed a break. I think with more time to prepare, they're going to get some of their role players going. And if we're talking about a two-man game, nobody can beat Arizona with Mathurin and Koloko. These guys scored 58 combined, 20 combined rebounds, 3 combined steals, 3 combined blocks, 6 combined assists. They played unreal in this game against TCU that they arguably could have lost. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Same with Gonzaga. Pulling out these close games, digging deep, Mathurin, unbelievable clutch factor, hitting the 3 to go to overtime, keeping them in it, dunks going into the overtime, Koloko with the follow-up dunk to win it. Those two are a problem to deal with. And yes, Houston has the size, strength, athletic bodies to deal with Arizona, which most teams don't. So I'm not saying this game is going to be a blowout or anything like that. I don't believe that at all. But when you look at what Arizona did against this TCU team, giving up 48 rebounds, right? That's not a good sign for me, and I acknowledge that Houston has the size to take advantage of it. However, Houston ranks 41st in the country in rebounds per game. Arizona ranks 12th. This feels like more of a hiccup that can be addressed than a size and strength issue. I mean, they have Koloko in there. They have a lot of big bodies. It's not like they can't rebound. Throughout the year, they've proven a lot more than the negativity from this one game proved to me. So I realize I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth a little bit because I'm really big on bully ball and seeing a lot of strength differences on the glass in some of these games. But I just believe that Arizona is going to fix that because they've shown in their body of work that they are fully capable of rebounding the basketball. And they've done it against the entire Pac-12. They haven't had many down games doing it. And last game might have been one, but it might have also been a wake-up call that they were able to skate past. I mean, look at the defense that they played on these guards, too. 5 for 20 from Miles, who was their best player and needed the ball down the stretch. 3 for 17. 7 for 18. They gave up 80 points, but it was an overtime game, and they really put the clamps down on the opposing guards. And I think if they do that to Houston's going to have a much harder time following that same blueprint that TCU was able to do. They have guards that are good. Sasser's going to score. I'm not saying he won't. But if they can put the clamps down on him a little bit, this isn't a team that's reliant on strong isolation scoring. They're going to need to move the basketball, and Arizona plays pretty good team defense and has a rim protector back there. I'm a UConn guy. Josh Carlton has had a good season. He was a UConn transfer to Houston. I think he's going to get bodied up by Koloko. I really like Koloko, by the way. He's shown me a lot. And 17, 13, and 6 with 5 blocks in the Wright State game. And then 28, 12, 3 blocks and a steal, 2 assists in the TCU game. Now, this Lampkin kid took it to him. 14 rebounds, 10 offensive rebounds. 10 offensive rebounds. But you watch the game, and everything just seemed to bounce right into TCU's hands. There was a lack of boxing out from both teams in this game. It got ugly. They got a little tired. It was a long game. I'm not excusing it. But there were a lot of bounces that, I mean, most of the time, you're not going to be able to get 10 offensive rebounds. Even if you're Dennis Rodman and working at 1,000% capacity, you're still not getting 10 offensive rebounds. I mean, 20 offensive boards to 14, and Arizona still wins the game, and their big man still performs. This just feels like regression the other way, right? I can't imagine they're going to give up 20 offensive boards. I can't imagine Josh Carlton is going to compete in any way with Koloko. You saw them struggle against Kofi Cockburn. 19-8. They sent a lot of resources to him in that game, if you watched it, because they didn't really have to worry about Illinois' guards. They didn't play well at all. Starting guard 0 for 1, starting guard 2 for 7, 2 for 7 off the bench here. They tried to throw a million guards in there, try to get somebody hot. They couldn't do it. This team didn't have the two-man game that Arizona has. If you throw Mathurin into this game with Cockburn probably has 4 more rebounds and more points because the pressure is being taken off of him. And so I don't think Houston has as easy a time in this kind of game if the Illinois team has the style of guard play that the Arizona team has. So I'm not taking this win away from them. They looked good. Their defense is really good. It really is. I just don't know if any defense is going to play as hard and as tight as TCU was able to. I'm including rebounding and defense. They kind of go hand in hand. This felt like the one that they had to get past. Every team has it on their way to a championship for the most part. I do think Arizona is still the best team in the field. I think it's their tournament to lose. And most of the time, if you can get past this really nasty hurdle, it's not going to be quite as hard for the same reason every single time. So if Arizona can control the rebounding, which I think they can do, and prove to be the more athletic team, even though that's a plus on the Houston side, I just see Mathurin being a huge, huge difference maker in everything. I mean, the confidence that this kid is going to get from that game-tying 3 to go into the overtime, and the overtime that he had to win the game for them, hitting clutch free throws down the stretch. They've proven that they can pull these close games out. I haven't seen it from Houston. In fact, even the UAB game, I picked UAB to win this game. And Jelly Walker was one of the reasons, because I thought that a single guard who could really give Houston's defense problems without their depth because of the injuries that they have would start to open things up for the size down low. And so when he goes 1 for 10 from 3 and started horribly and scores 17, but he was averaging 30 for 2 weeks before this game, I knew that it was going to be a tough one, right? And UAB even battled back in this one for a little while. The final seems ugly, but if you look at the second half, they got it down to a reasonable number at some point. I don't know exactly where that was. This might be too far now. It was 12 here. It was down to 8. And they were really fighting. It was 8 here as well. And I just felt like with 12 minutes left in a different game, an 8-point deficit can be closed if Jelly Walker starts to hit threes. It felt like Houston could have actually lost this game, even though they win by 14. I don't expect Mathurin to go 1 for 10 from 3. And again, same game we played with Providence, right? If he goes 3 for 10, which isn't even good particularly, that's 6 more points. We're looking at an 8-point game there. And again, Houston ran a lot off of misses. Edwards went 6 for 8 from 3. They shot the absolute lights out of the gym. It was darkness in there. And it was still only a 14-point game. Most people just look at the 14 points and go, they routed. Yeah, but the luck factor, it's not luck. They hit their threes and they played defense on the perimeter and stopped the opponent. But that could have been more balanced out. And I don't know if people would be feeling as good about Houston if this was a 4-point win against UAB, right? And then you look at the Illinois game, same thing. I mean, they struggled a little with Coburn, which is why I think Koloko could really give them a problem. Because this guy, his numbers don't bear out what he's doing on the court. I think when you watch him play, there's more to it than just a 12.7 and 7.4 guy. He's closer to Coburn than a lot of people would give it credit for. And when you combine that with Mathurin, this Mathurin kid, I really like him as a next level prospect. I think just narrative wise, right? Like just watching that 3 go down to send them to overtime felt like, this could be the most outstanding player of the tournament, building that resume right before our eyes. And because of that, the clutch factor, them being able to pull out that close game, getting some rest, being able to fix that box out rebounding issue. Whereas I don't think Houston had anything specific that they needed to work on quite as much, which I guess is a good thing. But I like when a team can pull out wins and then still improve. And I think we're going to see that from Arizona. So all of these reasons, the fact that I'm getting Arizona as the best team in the country at minus 130 just to win the game feels like a line that I cannot ignore. So give me the Wildcats, 2 units, same as the parlay. And we're on to the third game, the last game. We'll take this one in 2 different ways. The truth behind this one, I just don't think Iowa State is good. I don't like what they've done. You look at their games that they won. This LSU team didn't have a coach, and this game was really, really close. I'm not the biggest Jim Larinaga guy, but he's better than someone who hasn't coached the team the whole entire time. And a lot of people like Jim Larinaga, and he's proven for sure. So I'm not going to go crazy over them scoring 59 points and winning against an LSU team that, by the way, was also flawed and had all this turmoil and didn't have a coach. And you look at the box score, and LSU just shot really poorly, turned the ball over 19 times. 19 turnovers in a single game, and Iowa State could only win by 5. Now, Iowa State has a great defense. Some of these turnovers are because of that defense, and I'll give them that. But Miami has really veteran guards who are able to control the pace of the game really well. And so I don't think I like autoplay, I'll tell you that. I don't think that Miami is going to run into quite as many problems as Iowa State has forced onto both Wisconsin and LSU. Let's open the Wisconsin box score for a second, because those are two teams that just can't play offense. And I picked Wisconsin in this game, and I really liked Wisconsin in this game because I've been fading Iowa State. The problem is Johnny Davis is the only good offensive player on this Wisconsin team. And the same thing we just talked about with Jelly only going 1 for 10 from 3, I think the number was, for UAB. Davis goes 0 for 7 from 3 and 4 for 16 from the field, when I thought that guy was going to be the one to lead them to victory. Again, you have a team that goes 2 for 22 from 3. They turned it over 17 times. Credit to Iowa State's defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to force almost 20 turnovers in every single game they play. I would just be surprised if they're able to do that. I also haven't seen them crack 60 points yet in the tournament. I also haven't seen them go up against a player that had a good shooting night. Again, some of this is credit to them. Some of it is just luck-based. And Wisconsin just didn't have a second option to turn to here, right? They don't have another person who can shoot the basketball. 3 for 7 is their next most likely. They needed Davis to lead them to victory, and he just wasn't able to do it. The shots were not going down. But it's not like Iowa State scored well either. They went 3 for 14 from 3. Maybe that will have some positive regression. It's entirely possible. I just don't see any confidence in this Iowa State team. I don't have a reason to be confident in them. The two teams they beat were extremely flawed. They beat me here. Maybe I'm a little salty, maybe I'm not. But I picked against Miami in the first round because I liked USC better, and I was proven wrong. Some of this has to be just watching the games and understanding when your pick was just not correct. And Miami is a strong team. They dismantled this Auburn team pretty badly. And I did like Miami against Auburn because I thought Auburn was a bit of a fraud because I didn't like their guard play. But I definitely don't like Iowa State's guard play at all. So we look at their stats. They have one guard that can score. They have one player that can score it. And then you look back at the schedule. Against LSU, sorry, let's open these box scores. Against LSU, he went 6 for 16. Not great. Against Wisconsin, he went 4 for 15. He's not playing great. And he is their scorer. So what Miami has done here, going 3 for 15 from 3 and still dismantling Auburn badly. Their defensive numbers, for some reason, the reason to pick Iowa State would be for the defense and the defense alone, right? It's like the Virginia of old, except much worse. 5th ranked in the country, 158th in offense. Ugly. And then you look at Miami and you're like, yeah, well, 18th offensively, which is why I just think these teams are so worlds apart offensively that I don't think the defense of Iowa State can close the gap. But the bigger reason is that they're ranked 123rd on defense. But when I've watched them in their 2 games so far, especially this Auburn game, that ain't no 120th ranked defense that I'm watching. Not right now. They're playing better. They mix it up between zone and man. By the way, I think the zone can really give Iowa State problems here because 3-point percentage, 32% from the team. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence from me. And if you can play a quick zone and get ahead and force some misses and get out and run, I just think all things point to Miami here. Momentum, just better pedigree, better coaching, better resume, better wins in the tournament so far. Eye test, they pass it. Iowa State does not. And so when I saw the line was -2.5 and the money line is only -150, I actually felt like I was being trapped a little bit. I like this Miami team. I do. I just see so much ability to share the basketball here. And they shoot it a lot better. They've proven that they can beat good teams, which Wisconsin is a good team, but it was a one-man show. Miami is the opposite of that. And so I just can't understand this line It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's similar to the Arizona play where if we want to break down these teams, which we just did, and you want to tell me that you like Houston, okay, but don't tell me that a minus 130 line on Arizona isn't attractive. Same thing for Miami, except I actually can't think of a reason to take Iowa State. I'm so down on them. I really just haven't. They're undefeated against non-Big 12 opponents this year, I think. But they have a lot of losses in the Big 12. 12 losses. They finished the season with a 3-game losing streak. They finished with, let's see, 4-7 down the stretch. Only beating Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and they did beat TCU, who's a good team. They've had back-to-back losses here, back-to-back losses here, 4 losses in a row, 3 losses in a row. These 2 wins just don't inspire anything in me. I know they beat Texas Tech early in the year, but I don't know. Who are the out-of-conference wins that we're even talking about here? Arkansas Pine Bluff? Memphis when they were reeling and really struggling? Grambling? Alabama State? Oregon State? Kennesaw State? That stat of them being undefeated outside the Big 12, big deal. Good pun. I just love Miami in this spot. I think the line is just wrong. I don't even necessarily think this will be a close game. I could see Miami scoring at least 65, and that's being really light and giving a lot of credit to this Iowa State defense, which they deserve. But I don't think Iowa State's capable of getting to 65 against this Miami team, especially if they mix it up between zone and man. So I'm splitting this bet into 2 different bets, which is why we have 4, even if it's only 3 games. I'm putting 1 unit on Miami to win, money line, minus 150. And 1 unit on Miami minus 2.5. I like that spread. It's coverable unless it comes down to a last-second shot, which I don't anticipate happening. Then we get minus 110 for a similar price. So 1 unit on Miami minus 2.5 at minus 110. And 1 unit on Miami money line minus 150. And those are the picks. That's what we're sticking with. We don't have to get complicated. 3 games, 4 picks. We'll recap all of them right now. Gonzaga and Kansas money lines, minus 160 parlayed together. Mwah, that should be the easy one, hopefully. We'll probably have to sweat it out, but I think they come out on top. Arizona Wildcats, minus 130 against Houston. Miami Hurricanes, minus 150 money line. Miami Hurricanes, minus 2.5, minus 110 odds. We got 6 units on the board. 2 on the parlay, 2 on Arizona, and 1 each on Miami's bets. I love them. I really love them. I'm into this slate. We're working back. We're not picking too many games. I'm confident in all of this. We will have more picks at Mike Mush Sports when we get to the Elite 8. I don't know if we'll have time to do another show. We'll try. But since it's all over the weekend, you can at the very least get them on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Mush Sports, so give it a follow. Subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm. Leave a comment. Join the live chat when we're here so we could talk about these games, break it down. I would love to talk about them with you, get some back and forth going. We'll have another show before the Final Four weekend for sure. And there's plenty more to come in the other sports, but we got a long way to go with March Madness. We're going to get the money back. We are currently, let's look up the number, plus 37.1 units on the year. Pretty good. That's since January 1st. We're down a couple of units on the tournament so far. We're going to make them back. I'm determined to be positive on this tournament by the end. Dig out of the hole. Stick with us. We'll be back with another video this week, although it won't be March Madness related. We're going to do some other stuff. There's a lot to talk about. NFL free agency, NBA is coming up on the playoffs. Once the tournament is over, we'll get back into the swing of things with multiple sports. We got baseball bets. We got to get preseason baseball bets in. I'm starting to look at those. It's coming. A lot of stuff coming. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when I'm going live. Follow at Mike Mush Sports, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.